Yeah, YouTube. Good.
Facebook, YouTube, I think.
Yeah,
Should be.
Instagram.
Dun, 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 dun. Right. So let's go into that one. Oh, you work here on today? Get a bit out of you today, yeah?
Bit of testing downstairs today.
Right, here we go. Right. Morning everyone. Friday again. 7:30, just gone. This week, travertine. So, talk about all the different types of things around travertine. So, grout haze removal, cleaning and sealing, restoration, bit of an idea on the structure and stuff like that. A few different samples we've got here to show you what you're looking for, and we'll take it away. So, Martin.
So what we're going to do is go through, like Alex said, the common sort of, not issues, but the common things that when you go to a customer's home or a customer's going to have an issue with the travertine, whether that's when it's newly installed, it might be 12, 18 months down the line for periodic maintenance that they need, or it might be things like repairs, stuff like that that crop up as the floor starts to be used. So the first one we're going to discuss is newly installed tiles. Okay, so from previous weeks you would have noticed that the go-to product for grout haze is cleaner number 4 and first wash. Okay, this is where travertine, being a natural product, presents us with a challenge. Okay, so the rule of thumb to break down any cement, like cementers based grout, would be to use acid, but the problem is the travertine contains a lot of calcium and it's actually sensitive to anything acidic. Okay, so if we use grout haze on sort of a honed or polished travertine, use number 4 to remove the grout haze, you're going to remove the grout haze, which is great, you've got rid of one problem, but the acid product is actually going to burn the stone and create another issue.
Like so. If we can see this, I'm just going to put a little bit of our number 4 on there, and you should see that it's starting to go white. So that's actually damaging.
Okay, so what we need to do is just slightly switch our approach here, and we're going to go in with an alkaline product rather than an acid. Okay, so what that means is it's not going to break the grout haze down as quick, but it will soften it and it's still going to achieve the result that we need. It just might take a little bit longer, but what we're doing is we're going to remove the grout haze without damaging the surface underneath. To speed that process up as well, we can also combine it with a diamond pad. So what the diamond pad is going to do, that's going to mechanically remove the grout haze, and then obviously while the product is softening it at the same time, and that's going to speed up your result. Okay, so all the end user needs to do is obviously determine what level of sheen is on the travertine, and then make sure we use the specific pad that achieves that finish. The next problem again is it might be that there's just builder's dust. So we've discussed in previous weeks, nature of gravity, everything lands on the floor. So you might find, again, number 3, we'll remove that. But if it's a highly polished one, what we want to do is just a chance, because number 3 is a high alkaline, certain minerals and veins within the travertine can be quite sensitive. So if it's a real high shine, it can just take the edge off it and create not full dull spots, but just that little bit of loss of shine. So that's where we would recommend the clean number 2. So obviously as well, these are all spec'd on our cleaning charts. Another problem that you might face is sort of paint, glue, silicone, anything like that. So that's where we're going to go to the tile and stone stripper, which is a solvent-based product. Again, it won't affect finish or the tile in any way. It's just going to break down that paint, silicone, glue, whatever's on there.
Look, we've got things like the duct tape.
Yeah.
People put duct tape down on floors. People put high tack. They'll put there's different protectors. We've seen people where they put carpet protector down, which is a really strong adhesive that's on there, so the tack is quite high. So all this kind of stuff, and trying to scrape it away. Obviously, just recently, there's probably still ones out there, but you've got all the signs for, you know, where your feet stand because of the COVID situation. So all that kind of stuff, that's what you might be finding on some of these floors. So that's where your tile and stone stripper is going to come in really well.
Another common issue we find sort of when floors are handed over to clients is might be scratches and scuff marks. So it could be from a toolbox being dragged across it. It could be some ladders, anything
It's
sort of
grip really as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
just anything under boots.
Yeah, even, you know, a lot of guys use sort of Cordex, and then once any grip gets under there, just with people walking on it, that sort of, it just micro abrades the surface, just leaves little fine surface scratches in. So if it's sort of a big scratch, just isolate to one tile. That's where the hand diamonds are perfect for that. Because they've got a very small footprint, it allows you just to work very locally to the scratch. So if we've got a 60 by 60 tile and we want to remove a small scratch, we can do that locally just within that tile. Whereas if we move to, say, the diamond pads on the machine, they will do the job, but obviously if it's a 17-inch rotary, that's then going to overlap and go into more tiles. Okay?
Yeah. So what you've got is, let's say this is the tile. There's big blocks of these that are around, which is fine. They might work for some people. Great if you're chamfering the edges or something like that. But when you're dealing with a spot and you're doing this constantly, you want to try and minimise the area that you go into. So there's the size of it. So you're just going to say that's the first grit, and then the second grit is just going to go slightly out, and then the rest until you're actually feathered out with the rest of the tile. So that's why we go for these sizes, because they just save you a lot of work in the long run.
So that's the sort of all the common things that you're going to come across when a tile has just been laid, been grouted, and it's newly installed, ready for handover to the client. So the next one we're going to discuss is if you're brought in by a customer, it might be a commercial environment, when they want a periodic deep clean. So this might be 12, 18 months, 24 months down the line, and the customer wants the floor revamping or refreshing. So the sort of main problems, things that are going to crop up on these floors is, firstly, there's probably going to be a lot of dirt, grease, and like traffic film. Okay, so dead easy to remove that is clean number 3. Just high alkaline, does a great job at just eating through. So if it's a kitchen, if there's any sort of grease, cooking dirt, anything like that, it's just going to eat through that, and it's going to clean both the tiles, the grout, and any of the pits and stuff in the travertine.
I suppose it's a good thing to point out here, things like little hand brushes at times and diamond dust that can go in there. Just if you get any of the little pits, when you look at this kind of tile, you know, if anything's actually in there, you know, you just want to break that bond. That's where number 3 is really, really good, like Martin said. But sometimes you might just need a little bit of added diamond dust just to get to those really, really low spots that are in there.
The next problem is it might be stains. So again, what we need to do is, we'll discuss etch marks in a minute, but a stain is something like an organic stain, like red wine, beetroot, might be, you know, ink. We get a lot of inquiries about people where maybe the children have drawn on the floor with a marker pen and it stained it, or it might be in a shower enclosure where you get sort of the orange building up on the grout from the shampoos, or the actual, if there's not a lot of ventilation, you can start to get the sort of the black mould growing in the tile and also on the grout. So to remove all that, dead simple, we've got stain away. And it's as simple as you spray it on. It's a treatment, so we want to spray it on and let it work. It's not a case of just spraying it on, scrubbing it and wiping it off. Because it's a treatment that goes on and goes in and removes the stain, it needs a little bit of time to work. So that's sort of the common kind of stains that customers are going to sort of present to you when you go to look at a floor. The next one is etch marks. So again, in the industry, we'll get a lot of calls from customers saying, or building managers saying, I've got a big stain on my floor. And when we actually get there, it's not a stain, it's what we call an etch mark. So like we discussed before, anything acidic will, so if somebody sprays an acidic sort of bathroom cleaner or even sort of red wine, Coca-Cola, that will go on, and what it will do, the acid will burn tiny pinpricks into the tile, into the travertine, okay? And it might leave a dull spot. So it looks sort of like a stain, but obviously if we go down the stain removal route, that's not going to actually remove it. So to remove the etch mark is the same how we deal with the scratch. We have to use the diamond pads. So again, your option could be the hand diamonds if it's just a small local one, or we can use the flexi pads or the hybrids on the actual floor machines. Again, scratches and scuffs, so this time they're not maybe caused by the traffic from the builders. This might be, we get a lot around breakfast bars where we've got the stools, we've got metal feet. As they pull them in and out, it's scratching the floor. We get a lot from where people change the utilities, so it might be a washing machine, a fridge, and when they pull the old one out, they drag it along the floor. So you get two tram lines right in front of the fridge or the dishwasher. So again, they're scratches, they're damage, but they can all be removed using the different diamond pads that we offer.
I suppose it's a bit, what you can look at it to associate is like a car. So, you accidentally, you drive down the side of a road and there's a bush and it leaves a couple of scuff marks in there. Washing it won't get rid of it. So what we'll do is you may get a little bit of tea cut out and just rebuff it, and obviously that redistributes the paint. All of a sudden that scratch has gone. That's exactly the same as what we're doing with the floors and with the diamond pads. Like we say, depending on which diamond pads you're looking for, that's the route that you would take. Hand diamonds, flexis, hybrids, resins, if that's what the take is.
So the next one to consider when you go to a travertine floor is actually the potential that it's got some form of surface coating or sealer, like top surface sealer.
We've actually got some there that we can show.
Okay. So what we need to consider is if we need to strip the floor or if it's a cleaning job. Okay. So if it's a stain protector, so an impregnated seal, that sits within the stone and we don't need to strip that. Okay. If it's like a surface polish, a wax, or like a coating that's been put on the travertine at some point, that needs stripping back. Okay. So what we can do is we can remove that, or we can just clean the dirt that's on top of it. Okay. So it might be that we applied a wax dressing to it 12 months ago. The customer wants a bit of maintenance, so we don't need to strip that. We can just go in, we can clean it with cleaner number 2, and then just top it up again and like a refresh. So the floor's back to where it was 12 months ago. Okay, it might be, the other option is you go to a new customer and the floor was laid and sealed with a surface coating 5 years ago, and now in all the traffic ways, it's worn off, okay? But at the edges, it's still present. So what we need to do there is strip the whole floor, wall to wall, and then we can reseal it and redress it to the customer's choosing. Okay, so if we're going to remove the old surface coating and seal, the best product that we offer for that would be the TM stripper, which is water-based. So it's a nice product, very low smell, nice to work with, stays wet for a long time, but it's also got a nice bite. So it really gets in, breaks down some really tough topical seals, all sort of varnishes and stuff that might have gone onto the floor, and breaks it down, puts it in a liquid state so we can just extract it away. So other things to consider.
What's probably quite good is that you can see here on the picture as well, we've got a blade. So if you're unsure whether a surface is polished or whether it's actually got a surface seal on, as Martin said, you can just get a little bit of a scraper and a blade and just see, and it might come off a little bit like dead skin, as you can see here. Or again, use TM stripper, a pipette, place a little bit in an inconspicuous area, wipe it off, and if it's removed that level of shine, then we know that there's a chance that it's got that surface seal on there. So it's a nice, easy way just to identify.
So obviously what we would do there is change our approach from it being a cleaning job to now it being a stripping job. So we get a lot of trade customers that sort of start cleaning the floor, they get to lunchtime, they look back across it and all the middle looks good, it's back to where it should be, but the edges are sort of still shiny and a bit patchy, and that's because what they've done, they've cleaned all the dirt that's on top of the floor, and now they've unveiled that there's an old seal there which has worn off in the traffic ways but present at the outside. So it's not an issue, you can then just move from a cleaning product to the stripping product, but it's just they've wasted a morning when they could have actually been stripping. So that's the only thing. Now, one thing, well, sort of touching on that, is it's always thicker at the edges because nobody walks along the edge of a room. So what we need to do really is, one, we need to do our demo there to sort of work out how thick the coating is. But the other thing we need to consider is if we're going to have to apply more product with more dwell time and a bit more scrubbing action right at the edge, we need to protect the baseboards, the kitchen units and the skirting boards. So that's where the Pack-X comes in really good with that. So we can run some Pack-X along the wall, and then at the bottom we can apply some like blue waterproof tape, and that gives us a nice strong seal. Just that respect, protecting the customers' homes, you know, is a big ethos here at Townmaster.
And a few times in the past, haven't we, where customers have phoned up, trade customers, and they've used stripper and it's taken a little bit of paintwork off. So, you know, like we say, just be proactive, you know, just respect it. That Pack-X is really, really good stuff. So if you're not using that and you're using something else, just make sure that, you know, it's something that's got low tack, because the last thing you need is when you peel it off, all of a sudden it's taking all that paintwork with it. You know, we've worked in kitchens where they're a couple of £100,000, the last thing you need is to rip that off and then it needs painting again, you know, if it has been hand painted. So Pack-X is a really, really good product. We searched the market for it for a long time, didn't we?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's fantastic.
So another thing to consider is how many coats of old seal has the floor got on. You know, we've been to jobs where the floor's 20 years old and the customer said, I've put a coat of polish on every year for the last 20 years. You know, that job's not going to be just a quick once over, quick scrub, and you're going to remove 20 layers of a coating. Yeah, that's going to be like a sandwich. It's built up in layers, so you know, the first attempt might remove the first 5, and then as we get through it, you know, it's going to be 3-4 applications. Again, that comes down to your demo, so you're not sort of thinking that it's an easy strip and then when you get there you're having to go over and over it. The final thing to consider as well with coatings is what type of coating is it. Okay, so if it's a yacht varnish, that's
run a mile.
Yeah.
Run a mile.
That's going to be a lot harder, and believe me, there are people that have put yacht varnishes on travertine floors, and that's going to be a lot harder to remove than maybe just one coat of kind of like DIY supermarket polish, which just put a nice thin film and a bit of a sheen on the floor. Okay, so that's where you need to consider what the coating is, how tough is it to remove, and how many layers of it are there to deal with. Okay, so it's all, it's relatively straightforward. Again, with the yacht varnish, that's where we might move to the tile and stone stripper, because that's a solvent-based product. But again, that's a little bit stronger, so we need to up our protection on the skirting boards, things like that. Okay.
And yourself, so PPE for this kind of stuff too.
That one does have quite a strong smell because it's solvent. So these are just things to consider when you get inquiries and you go out to look at these types of jobs. The last thing that crops up a lot with travertine is repairs. Okay, and the beauty of repairs is it's relatively easy work, but there's a lot of it out there. So the first problem that a customer might face is sort of holes and pits within the travertine. Okay, so first we'll just explain it with travertine. That's its inherent nature. Okay, so travertine comes out of the rock like Swiss cheese. What happens is hot gases, springs, pass through it and they burn away the softer parts. Okay, so this is what the back of every travertine tile looks like. Okay, so depending on the grade, some of them will have very minor sort of holes and pits in it, and then a lower grade will have a lot of sort of voids in it. So what will happen is during the factory process, that will be filled with filler, sort of a grout, a slurry, any sort of mix, just to make it smooth. So what then happens is, over time, with foot traffic, high heels, chair legs, these voids.
There you go. There's a perfect one. So you've got a big hole here. So we're about a finger away. When we go this side, looks like there's no hole actually there.
So because there's a void, an air pocket under there, you get pressure in the right point, and that will pop. Okay. So I do believe that with travertine, the factories sort of say there is a breaking in period for the first few years, and it is a very nice, warm, like classic material, but it's just because of that breaking in period, you sort of buy into the fact that it does need the holes sort of filling through that breaking in period. So what we've got is we've got a two-part resin, which is very tough. It's like a glue, so that can be used to fill the holes, or the smaller sort of pits like the pinpricks, we've got we call it like a hot wax. So it's waxes that come from the factories that are used in the manufacturing process, and they come in a range of colours and can just go in and fill up the actual holes in the pits. And it's a tough product. It goes in, and it can only be melted, like we melt it in at quite high heat with a little iron. So obviously anything like underfloor heating, stuff like that, that won't affect it. It's not going to get the floor hot enough to remelt it.
I suppose it's worthwhile pointing out that if you're dealing with a crack, we can't say that that's a little bit structural to the tile. So you're better with the two-part filler than you are with the waxes. But if it's holes, nice and easy, you can fill the waxes in that. Again, you can use the two-part, but the waxes might just be better positioned for that kind of work, I guess. Both polishable as well, so if you're dealing with a floor that's not a honed finish, it's a polished finish, and again, when you're refinishing it at the end, they will polish, so it'll come together as one with the floor.
Yeah, so that's as well, you get a lot of cracks. It might be from extensions with a little bit of movement. It might just be a weak spot within the tile, along maybe a vein, something like that. So the cracks pop up quite a lot. With a hairline, it tends to just be like a black line through the tile. So your option there is either just leave it as is and clean it, or if you want to get some of the resin filler in, what you need to do is just take a little bit of it out, just to create a key. Whereas like this, if it's a bigger crack that's sort of separated, then the filler will just go straight in there. But the main thing is that we just clean it first, let it dry, and then we'll get a good bond with either of the fillers that we use.
And the fillers come in white and cream, but then there's a range of tints, so you can then create the colours depending on, if you want to pick out a couple of the little areas of the stone and different tones, then you can do all that kind of stuff as well.
And then another thing with the movement that might happen is you might get some grout that cracks or some loose grout that needs attending to. So for the tilers, it's a nice add-on service. Maybe if you're in the sort of the cleaning and restoration trade, then it might be something that you've got the skill set to do, or it might be that you link up with a tiler and get him in to do it. And that goes as well for if there's any loose tiles. So what we need is they need to be lifted, rebedded, but obviously we need to consider things like underfloor heating, stuff like that. So if they are taken out, they need to be done carefully, and then obviously match back in. So they're things that will pop up, and they're nice little add-on services for customers. Okay, so we'll come on now to the solutions to these problems. So we touched on before, cleaner number 3. Again, very good cleaner, high alkaline, eats through sort of grease, grime, traffic dirt. You can see there on this picture, you know, half and half. So that's a great product for travertine, and it's going to do a really good job on sort of the cleaning, deep cleaning, and obviously after the installation as well, for removing the dust. TM stripper. This is your solution for removing the old surface coatings, stuff like that. So again, here we can see this was a test patch that was done on the floor. So all we do, we just drop, you know, a bit down the size of sort of a 10p coin, leave that for a few minutes, and obviously if it goes dull and we can see that it's removing the coating on top, that means it's a stripping job rather than a cleaning job. And like Alex discussed, we can just use the flat edge of a sharp blade, run it along, and if we're getting like dead skin coming off the top of the tile, that's a good indication as well that there's a surface coating on there.
Just things like your pipette, you know, for this 10p piece, just let it dwell, things like that. These are heavily discounted at the moment, aren't they?
Well, they are free, normally 300.
Yeah, 300, but discounted at the moment.
Again, we touched on these, so the repair kits. So depending on the job in hand, like we said, if it's a crack, we might want to go with the 2-part resin, because that's more of like a glue, it's a stone mastic, so it will give the tile some structure back. But one thing to consider is obviously we can never sort of guarantee that the repair will 100% last, because if it's from movement, or maybe if the floor was laid on wood and there's some expansion and contraction over the seasons, obviously as we get later on in the year, the floor might move again and the repair will pop. But generally, it's the best solution to sort of try and bond the tile and give it some structure and strength. And for sort of your more sort of smaller repairs and holes, and obviously because you've got different colours and they're intermixable, so you can actually get, you know, a near invisible repair on this, because you can actually really well match it to the colours that's going on in the tile. That's a really nice, easy product to use.
Yeah, it's so straightforward, isn't it? I mean, flipping it. Yeah. You could do 10 holes in 5 minutes, you know, it's really, really easy.
Okay, so again, we've touched on the scratches and the etch marks and stuff like that. So obviously, like we said with the car, you don't take your car to the car wash and expect the scratches to come out. So once we clean and wash down the travertine floor, the damage, the scratches, the etch marks aren't going to be removed. So that's where we then need to move to the diamond pads. So we've got a huge range of diamond pads, from resin ones, metal ones to remove the lippage, up to sort of economical polishing pads, and then the hand diamonds as well for sort of localised repairs and spot repairs. So just touching on how easy the application methods are and stuff like that, we have got a lot of YouTube videos on how to use the products. So this is one Alex actually made a few years back of how to repair a crack, full step-by-step video, and that's actually up to just over 68,000 views. So you can see there is, you know, it's quite a lot of people searching for this kind of stuff. So if you're putting yourself out there to say that you offer this kind of repair work on travertine, then, you know, it's a good line of work. And then, yeah, so then next week, what we'll do is we'll touch more on, we'll keep on travertine, but we'll discuss more sort of the sealing side, stain protection, wax dressings, so where we use them when they can be a good option for a customer, and also when we'll go down the mechanical polishing route, and we'll explain all that.
Yeah. I think so. Should we call it a day? A bit longer than 15 minutes, we're about 20-25 minutes, something like that. But as always, thanks very much. A few questions coming in which we fire back, but if there's anything you want us to cover, like you say, or Martin say, we'll cover this next week. But if there's anything that you want covering, you know, you're interested in, you want to learn more about, then just ping it over to us and we'll do a subject on it. So yeah, thanks very much for your time. For those guys that are watching on YouTube, don't forget, hit the like and subscribe button and hit the bell. Hit the bell. Ring that bell. Thanks very much. Have a great weekend. It is our hometown, so we're just going to say a little good luck to Stockport County. They're playing on Sunday, and fingers crossed they can go up. That's actually my new team now after United have done so poor this season. So yeah, I'm a lifelong County fan since Wednesday this week when I was there. So yeah, all the best. Thanks very much, guys, for your time, and see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week.